I'll introduce myself. I'm Michael. I'm the head of strategy and solutions here at Launch Control. And yeah, my co-presenters are Oak. Let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Oak Andrews, over at DealMachine, one of our educators here. So I host a lot of trainings, webinars, challenges, just a lot of different aspects of the how to use DealMachine.
Okay, and Jason.
I'm Jason Connor, product adoption specialist, been with Launch Control for 2 years. I'm mostly working on different projects, working with high spenders, partners, affiliates, and so on and so on, mostly around best practices, strategy calls. I think that's it.
Okay, great. Well, as I'm sure all of you know at this point, we've got a really exciting data partnership with DealMachine, and we wanted to give you guys really an inside look at how to optimize that data. And then we'll also, of course, talk about how that applies to launch, how to then, take that data and get the most deal flow possible by running it through systems and launch. But we're gonna kick this thing off by really letting Oak give us a deep dive into DealMachine and what that can offer for your business.
Awesome. So first, I just kind of always want to start with a why DealMachine. How we came about. One of the cool things about our platform is we were created by a real estate investor. So David, our co-founder, he was working that 9 to 5, working in a basement with no windows, doing some IT support kind of things, sleeping with a computer underneath his pillow. So he'd roll over, fix something, go back to bed kind of attitude. He realized he couldn't do that forever. He didn't want to do that forever. So he started to talk to his manager at the time, who he knew had some rentals. And he asked, how do you find the rentals? And the manager said, go back to 2008. Good luck. David knew this wasn't right. He knew there were meetups. He was going to meetups here in Indiana. He knew people were doing it. He just didn't really know how. So he went through a couple failures, buying a bulk list, trying to go on the market, trying to, just find those properties on market that he had saved money for, and then realized he couldn't afford any of them. Then he heard about driving for dollars. So he's at a meetup. He hears about this. He has his notebook. He's driving different routes to work every day, and he's writing them down on his notebook. And a lot of the times the notebook didn't make it into the house because he knew you got to bring it in. You got to log on to, the county taxes and the register and figure out who owns the properties, all that. So one day he's driving to work and he sees a house on his list. It's right there at the top of his list. And he realized somebody was working on that house. So he lost that opportunity. He went to work, popped open his computer, found the record, and saw that somebody had paid less than what he was willing to pay for that house. So he could have gave the seller more money and realized, hey, I need to create a system that's going to allow me to get information quickly, send follow-up marketing, remind me of tasks because I'm busy, and just kind of set it and forget it. So that's kind of where DealMachine came. So I'm going to pop into my screen real quick. As we're looking at DealMachine, our main goal is to help provide you with data as fast as possible. So a couple cool things about our stuff. Our data is updated every day. So our provider gives us data daily. When you hop in, you might see that you have some leads that need updated. Okay, that just is going to tell you that something has happened since you've added them. So our data is updated every day. If your county's like 6 months behind, we're going to be 6 months behind. We can't really control your county. But that is the cool thing about us. We're not just buying bulk data once or twice a year and then, saying good luck, here we go kind of type mentality. If somebody could in the chat, or if somebody has a suggestion, go ahead and drop a location. One of the cool things about DealMachine, it is nationwide. So I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I actually last used it this weekend. We did a family weekend for my nephew. He's a freshman in college, and we're looking at all the Airbnbs we're staying in, and people were wondering how much things were, and I was just pulling up properties left and right. So it has me in Winona Lake, Indiana. So if you guys have any suggestions on where to go, that'd be great.
Jason, why don't you take a stab at this first? Like what's a market that we know from the CS team is a market that can be, tough to find deals, or where people feel like the data has been pretty saturated, where they're having trouble getting unique records in that market?
First thing that pops to my mind would be Phoenix.
Phoenix. Okay.
Yep.
Always test my spelling capabilities. All right, so when
I
you
never
start to
spell
type
that one
in,
right. That's
this always gets me.
I think there's like everyone has like 5 words that their brains just refuse to spell correctly, and that one's on my list of 5.
It's insane, isn't it? So as you see, as I start to type Phoenix up here in my search bar, it starts to give me suggestions. It says, hey, do you mean these addresses because you're in this general area of Indiana, or do you mean these locations? If a county matched or something else matched, it'd pull all that down. So we want to go Phoenix, Arizona. So it's going to pull us out and take us over there. And now we're going to start checking out Phoenix. DealMachine can be used in a number of ways to grab data. We can do what we were talking about earlier, the traditional driving for dollars. We can use our filters to create a list, or we could also do virtual driving. The thought process behind driving for dollars. Well, first we'll talk about list. So, Michael, say you and I are sitting behind a computer, and we both type in Phoenix, Arizona, and we both type in absentee owners, equity 50% or higher. Okay. And we're in the same data provider. We're going to get the exact same list. If we have the same criteria, it's the same list, no doubt about it. When we drive for dollars, you and I can sit in the same car, cruise up and down a 10 city blocks, add properties as we go, and we're going to have a little bit of overlap, but you're going to see stuff that you think is important. I'm going to see properties I like, so we're not going to be identical. So we know that when you drive for dollars physically, you're going to have lower competition, and that's where you get your deeper deals. I always like to say that's also where you can find your property that is on the pre foreclosure list, zombie list, tired landlord list, whatever you want to call them, right? Because you're cruising down the street and you see the house is immaculate, but maybe the front gutters are really full. There's stuff starting to sprout out of it. So that draws your attention to it versus the house next to it that, has boarded windows and the grass is overgrown. There's 5 or 6 different things, right? That'd be a good one too, but not a lot of people are going to add that one point of distress. So that's why the
Yeah,
physical driving for dollars.
I'd love to get your opinion on this one, though, because this is something that I think is really unique to driving for dollars and really unique to what you can accomplish through DealMachine, given the fact that, as you said, the data is updated every day, right? So a lot of times when people are filtering for REI, they're looking for homeowner motivations, right? Like if it's pre-foreclosure, you know more or less what situation the homeowner is in. If it's a vacant or absentee, you know more or less what situation the homeowner's in. But the end of the process is that you're going to sell this property to a buyer, right? So if you're using Launch Control and you're curating a list of buyers, and from that list of buyers, you're getting detailed information about what they're buying in a 90-day period, right? Like they are specifically looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in a specific neighborhood in Phoenix. And you know that's what they want to buy. Right. So now you're going into DealMachine and you're looking for not necessarily motivations, but where are these properties that directly match what I know
Yep.
my end buyer wants, right?
Yeah. So taking that equation and doing it that way is super simple on DealMachine. We can do a couple different things. So first we can go to our filters up here. So and I'm just going to put up generic stuff, right? Because I don't know exactly what your buyer's looking for. But we can look through here, and if they say they want a certain equity in a house, right? Or if they want mortgages information, whatever this information may be, size of the home, property type. So we're going to do single family. That they don't typically mess with anything that is less than 3 bedrooms. So we'll do 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Okay. So there could be other things, but for time constraints, we're just going to pop into some of these quick filters. So we're going to filter out. So now we're going to start seeing highlights. We're going to start seeing some colors, and you never really know what's going to happen on here because it is a live show, folks. So as we start to look around, we should start seeing some of these turn blue. Okay, that means that they're a single family. They're going to have 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms or more, and 2 baths. And I don't know the area, so I don't really know what we're looking at. So let's just do this. So I'm going to drop it to 1 and 1. See if that changes anything. What is this area? Oh, this looks like it might not even be single family. Oh, okay. So now we're starting to see some blue. All right. So I just changed it to single family. But as you see, you can take those filters up there and you can start to see, okay, I'm going to turn these filters on and it's going to give me direct access to see who fits that motivation. Okay. Down here on the bottom left, it's going to actually give you a total number when it's done calculating how many properties are in Phoenix, Arizona that fit that criteria. There's over 438 that fit that very broad criteria we have. Okay. What it will do is it'll allow you as a deal machine, as a real estate investor, you can now go through and say, all right, this is the area I do want to target, or you can look for that specific area you want. You know the addresses, you know the zip codes, whatever it may be, and you can go through and you can create that list that quickly. This will do a couple things for you. One, it'll pull all those properties so you can then go through and virtually drive them or physically drive them to get eyes on them. Or 2, it just automatically puts them in because you know that's what your buyer's looking for. You can also get as specific as you want in terms of, I just want this section because I know that's what they care about. So now we can just draw the parameters of where we want to go. We can look at it. So we see all this information here. So as we're pulling this is going to show us a visual of where that hotness is, right? Where those hotbeds are. Once you do click on a property, this is going to give you a lot of information of what to do in terms of, is there any equity in it? Is it on the market? Has it recently been on the market? Who owns it? All that kind of information is going to be here as well. So these are all the data points that you can search through. And then you just take this information and you filter it out and determine what you want to do with it. Is this a property that looks good? Sure, let's add it. If it's not a property, then you don't need to add it. And then from this point, you can go through and you can start mail, you could skip trace, you could export, or you could just export the data out and throw it into your launch control to start your texting campaign. One other thing that's really neat that we've recently updated is we'll now show you portfolios if they have them. So these guys have a portfolio of 4 total houses. That's the value, the mortgage, the equity. Then you can go through and look at these. So if you're starting off, you're trying to build your buyers list, this is a good way where you could go through, find people with multiple properties, and then target to them for buyers, right? If you're trying to go that route. Or that they're actively buying because you could look at this and it could say, hey, this was just bought last year, or this was bought in 2013. But you could go through and see, hey, they are actively buying in this area. So you could create a buyer's list that way too when you start to look for it. Michael, any questions so far?
Really we're jumping to see if there are any questions. I think it's a really interesting feature because it fits into something that we were talking about before we jumped on, which is the ability to establish whether you're having a B to C conversation and you really need to build trust with a homeowner who may or may not be familiar with off-market alternatives. And and a lot of times the likelihood is that no, they're not, right? As to dealing with somebody that has experience in off-market properties, which makes it a B2B conversation and really kind of changes the cadence and changes the approach that you're going to take. So you're able to go into from text message number 1 all the way through discovery call. It gives you a very clear idea of how to steer that conversation and get to that end result that you want. So it gives you a ton of usable information. And I know we were looking at some of the other kind of factors, and I saw even all the way down to like the school district, right? All of that kind of stuff is incredibly usable, not only in a text engagement sequence, but also once you get them to discovery call, of being able to really kind of push for the initiative that you want. You know, like what I've really been looking for is a 3-bedroom place in Oak Ridge Estates. Really important to me that it falls into the Lincoln High School district. You know, this seems like a great fit for me, and you're able to use that kind of data based off of the area to create a connection with the seller, whether it's a B2B or a B2C connection. You've got everything you need to really script your text flow and your discovery call right there.
Yeah, it's very powerful, the data points that we have, and I'll give you guys a little insight. We are getting more data points that we're going to be releasing soon, but that's just all I can say about that. But keep in mind, as you look at these, they all can be a motivator for whatever reason. You know, oh, this one has a HOA. Maybe they don't want to deal with HOAs, so you move on from there. You can disqualify that. You could see it was recently sold, right? So that's probably not one we'd want to go after, right? Because it was just recently sold. So DealMachine is going to give you all these different data. Now it's up to you to figure out what makes sense for you. What criteria do you want? People always ask me for the special sauce or the secret recipe, and it's, you know, I always tell them, you know, it's whatever your favorite ice cream flavor is, right? What's your favorite color? Because I have people that swear by certain criteria, and that's what works for them. And they could be in the same market. Like one guy that I talked to a while ago, he realized after he did a year retrospective that the best deals he had came from people that had wheelchair ramps and in-window AC units. Those were the two indicators that worked the best for him. So he had his team add everything, but when they saw anything that met that criteria, they put an extra star on it and they added extra notes and they said, hey, this is a really important one, kind of deal.
So, Jason, I'd like you to speak to this a little bit, because what I see here with the exact example that Oak just gave is, you know, and we were talking about this going into this, right? Like everyone has their sweet spot. Everyone has those certain deals that are just really easy for them to turn around. They have a great connection with homeowners that are, you know, in that filter type of that specific home that they're looking for, and fitting, as I said, to like the end buyer, what they want, right? They find that sweet spot that's just really easy for them to turn over that volume. So, you know, within Launch, we can use, Jason, you correct me if you have a better idea, but I'm thinking the custom tag system to really be able to get down to some of those really fine-tuned filtering opportunities to figure out what your own sweet spot is. So if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like you said a few days ago during our meeting, all roads lead to data-driven decisions. So what that means is, with all the feature and filter capabilities the DealMachine has, that can easily be translated to Launch Control as well, in terms of keeping track of all the KPIs, the stats, delivery, response rate, and pretty much everything that will allow you to determine whether something is worth investing in or not. And since this, I would assume that people that join the mastermind are predominantly Launch Control users, you guys know about all the filters that Launch Control has, and especially the tagging system. So on top of the statuses, hot, warm, nurture, drip automations, on top of all the filters along with the tags, you're really able to narrow down your specific focus, especially when you're trying something new. So if you were to go with DealMachine, you can set up a specific campaign named after DealMachine and exactly the type of properties that you're looking after, and just keeping track of the delivery rates that your content is creating, if any tweaks need to be made. Also exporting data. So we have the export prospects feature in settings as well. If you didn't know about it, definitely make sure to check it out, because it allows you to custom any export that you do, whether you want to do it in bulk per campaigns, if you want to narrow it down to statuses, to tags, no response, or should I say people who never responded to your initial message. So everything that you pull from the DealMachine can be tracked into Launch Control. And just to speak a bit more about those tags, they don't really similar to unlike drip automations where a drip status actually triggers an automation or a cadence of messages, tags are there for you to customize your inbox even further and to organize it. So you may have a hot lead, but you may not know whether that hot lead went to the CRM, whether you had a conversation with the hot lead, whether you even managed to put the property under contract and eventually close the deal. But you have those tags, custom tags that you can name however you like. And after a certain point, if you want to export that data, you can just go to export prospects feature, filter or export all of those leads per that tag, so you can keep track of, okay, so this is how many conversations I'm having on a daily basis, this is how many hot leads or qualified leads I'm generating on a weekly basis, and this is what I can expect on a monthly basis. So definitely advocating fully to keeping track of those stats and allowing yourself to make data driven decisions that will take your business on to the next level of finding out something new, maybe going into a different market, but every kind of structure will be followed the same across anywhere. It's just that a certain amount of research is needed to make sure that what you're seeing is actually correct and how you can make decisions moving forward.
Yeah, so we'll let Oak jump back in, and Jason can show you guys right before we get to the Q&A. He can show you what that looks like in the app in case anybody is curious about that. But yeah, what it really comes down to, what we're saying is this comes down to marketing and A/B tests, because people are wrong all the time about what their sweet spot is. Investors go in sure that most of their deals are coming from hot pre-foreclosure leads. And it turns out that over a 6-month span, they closed 30% more deals from high equity kind of nurture based campaigns. Mm-hmm. And that's where most of their success came from. Didn't expect it, didn't put most of their focus there, but that's where the deals came from. So by setting up that structure that Jason's talking about to capitalize on what is available here in DealMachine allows you to have a analytics-based proof of what your sweet spot is, so that you can really hone in on that in DealMachine and in Launch to continue driving those deals. All right, so I'll go ahead and let you jump back in. Sorry for the tangent.
No, you guys are great. The last thing I'll show on the data collection side before we kind of hop into now what happens after you add all these properties is that virtual driving. So the cool thing about DealMachine is when you have it on your app or you have it on your desktop, you're going to have the same user experience. The only thing you can't do is virtually drive with your computer. Physically drive with your computer. You can't throw it on your lap and drive around. So virtual driving is basically the same thing, but we're just going to hop down at Google Street Image view. And then we're just going to cruise around town and look for properties that meet our visual buy box. Right. So, again, don't know the area too well. So we're cruising down this street. You're looking through here. You look at it and you say, yeah, that property looks like it's something that meets my buy box. You always want to look down here to see when Google was last through. We're only as good as Google on this. We're at their mercy. So if they haven't been there in 10 years, we don't have a picture that's 10 years newer, right? So you can see this one was in 2020. I've actually done this a couple times where we see that, we have some tags down here, recently sold. It was recently sold and there was a crew working on it. So Google caught the renovations happening, which was kind of neat and scary all at the same time. But as you go through, you could sit here and say, yeah, you know what? These are all properties that look good. I want to add them. I want to keep building this out because I'm going to start contacting these homeowners soon. Right. So you're kind of just cruising through. So that's the same concept as physical driving, but now we're just virtually driving. A lot of people like to do this. They have VAs do it. They give them very specific details on what they're looking for. They do it at night, after you put the kids to bed. They do it during their lunch breaks if they still haven't broken away from their 9 to 5. So there are just a lot of different tools that you can use, and virtual driving is one of them. Keep in mind, you don't have to have the property to see the details. You can always click on it and it's going to give you some information. Then you can take that information and determine if it's going to be worth your while to add, do some skip tracing, start targeting them, and so on and so forth. So that's the virtual side of things. So we've added these properties. We've got them through the list builder that we showed where we pull over filters. We've gotten them through the physical driving. We've gotten them through the actual driving. where are they going? Well, they're going over to our leads tab. And this is where you're going to have everything that you find important showing. So you can edit all your columns. You know, if you don't care, if you're not sending mail, you don't care about the mail. If you, you know, if living square footage is important, you can turn that on. Whatever it may be, you can go through and manipulate this. And this is just where you can further fine tune your leads. You can go through and you can start manipulating them to see, all right, you know, I added all these in a rush. Are these really properties I want to go after? You know, yes, no, maybe so. We have a funnel system in here where you can do pipeline management by setting up your appointments. So if you set up an appointment, if they're in the marketing, you just change your stages so it kind of help you manage everything. Or, hey, I like everything I see here and I need to get it exported so I can start doing my launch control series, right? So then you just click all of them, you go down here and you mass export them, kick them out to CSV file or whatever kind of file that you need. And then you can import them into launch, and then you can start sending your texts, right? So we're very, very easily managed. You can use us as a CRM. We always like it. If you keep it all there, it's simple, it's easier for you. But if you have a system you're already using, we make it super easy to get your data and move it. We do have some limitations based on the plan you have, but we can go into that later when it comes to the exports. But yeah, it's all there for you. It's pretty simple. We do offer mail. If you want to go down the mail route, that's totally fine. We have customizable mail where you can literally pick your postcards, make them as crazy as you want them to be. I always like to show that one. My wife hates it because the kids look crazy, but that's as detailed as you can go, or you can just use one of our templates and you can create different postcard sizes. Anytime you see the photo of a house on the postcard, that's coming from your lead, because when you do a physical drive, you are able to take photos of the properties. I believe it's up to 25. You could drop it in there. So if you're even doing a walkthrough, you could take videos and photos and drop them onto your lead card. So they're there for you to look at. So that's
let me jump in here real quick, because this is a great opportunity to take a retargeting approach as well. Like if anybody is using postcards through you guys, or just through other services that they have set up, you know what, though, while texting is very active, right? Like if you're looking for active conversations on a Monday morning at 10 a.m., there is no better way to get people talking than text, right? Whereas postcards are much more passive. But when those reactions do come in and homeowners have their hand raised, they're really strong leads. They're motivated leads, right? So you have essentially an opportunity one time, maybe two times, to close that deal, right? But you're not always going to be able to do that, no matter how motivated they are. A lot of times they're going to have certain questions that they want answered. They want to take a step back, do a little thinking, do a little research. It's not always going to be a 30, 60-day decision, but you know that they're thinking, you know that they're in the consideration phase. So you want to be able to close that out, right? So now that you've had an active conversation with them, that makes text as a re-engagement tool and as a way to kind of open up another channel extremely powerful. Like every sales team in the world will do some combination of, you know, hey, just following up on the conversation we just had. If you want to reach me here directly, you can. And it's opening up that secondary conversation via text. So now you have, you know, multiple channels that you can engage with them in and ask those simple one-off questions, or ask that little qualifying question that pushes back to a discovery call, and that secondary discovery call is the one that gets the deal done, right? So you can take those wherever you're getting those kind of inbound postcard leads, and work with Jason and his team on setting up a whole retargeting system within Launch to get them at that separate thread, and get your team that ability to engage with them on multiple channels, so you keep that opportunity open longer and hopefully close more deals out of it in the end.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned how mail is passive. I do very small investing. You know, if I do a handful of deals a year, it's a great year for me. But my phone started to ring today during meetings, and I couldn't understand why my real estate investing phone was ringing. And I finally got
You have
off
like a
my calls,
bat
I
phone
listen.
for real estate deals?
I
That's
do.
awesome.
I do. We invest in our hometown, which is about an hour and a half away from here, and it has a different zip code and area code, and we try to keep everything a little separate. But I realized that I had another batch of mail go out that I forgot about because I set it on a mail sequence, and that's what was happening. I was getting people to tell me to take a hike, and I had one guy call because he wanted to follow up on a listing that failed, and the guy wants way too much money for it. But we'll work on that. The reason I bring that up is we have mail sequences, so you can go through and set up your mail sequence. Like I have 768 of them in this one, where it's a simple process where they get this one 3 times separated by 21 days. Then I'm going to have them get one once a month, just to kind of send it out. So I forgot I'd sent mail. I got phone calls. And now instead of having to go through and randomly text them again with my phone, I can always use, Launch Control if it was at a much larger
Yeah.
area for sure.
Don't want to go too far down this tangent, but it's a really good opportunity to, because the way we look at it always is that no matter what your marketing channel is, those are closable leads, right? So it's really just using everything in combination to get the end result that you want, right? The end result the end-to-end result that you want is a deal, obviously. But really before that, you need to get, call it a discovery call, call it an information session, whatever you want to call it. You need to have that one-on-one session with the homeowner, either over the phone or on site, right? And in order to tee that up, it's just a question of touch points. And if you can use the combination of active touch points and passive touch points in the right cadence, it converts extremely well, right? So it's taking that versus mentality of text versus mail versus, it's not versus, it's how do we combine everything together to create the right cadence of touch points to get the end result that we want. And those two can work in concert really, really well. Before you continue, I do want to say to everybody attending, that Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen is open. Please type in any questions, ask specifics, ask about your market. The more that we can dive into this from like your lens and what you would like to be able to pull out of this, the more productive we can make this. So by all means, drop some questions in there and give Oak and ourselves a bit of guidance.
Yeah, that's a great lead because I've pretty much hit everything that I usually like to hit on the data part. We could talk data and I could pull examples all day long, but really it's you trying to understand, like Michael said earlier, what your buyers want. If you've already have that built out, finding your buyers, and then just going out and having the conversations, right? So some people say they hate when they have to talk to owner occupied because there's a lot of emotion built with that. There's a lot of, hey, I'm going to give you $10,000 for your house. That seems weird, it makes my stomach hurt even thinking about it. But the ones that do really well with that are the ones that are getting somebody who's in a really tough situation out of that situation. So don't be afraid if it's owner occupied. Don't be afraid if it feels uncomfortable. Talk to them, figure it out. If it's a not now, that's great. If it's a see you later, get off my lawn. Okay, well at least you got an answer, right? And you're getting those reps in. So yeah, I'm open for questions. For anyone, if you guys have any questions, we can hop into it.
Okay. And just to play off of what Oak just said, it ties back into what we were saying earlier, guys, where if you're able to really segment that data, like we used Phoenix as an example, right? But instead of texting Phoenix, you are targeting down to specific neighborhoods, down to specific home types that your end buyer is looking for, down to very specific motivation types. How many filter sets do you guys have in DealMachine, Oak?
I don't know, over 90 plus.
Yeah.
I don't even know. There's so many of them.
So
Let me show you.
you can take that all the way down to these really, really specific filter sets. And what's behind every filter set is a very specific buyer profile, or excuse me, seller profile. So, what you can do within Launch, and Jason, I can show you how to do this in a second, is when you're setting tags for a specific filter within DealMachine. And if you're not completely clear on exactly what the seller type is going to be, then you can work with DealMachine and with us to figure that out. But in an example, like I can have Oak kind of walk through this one, but an example that was kind of new for Jason and I, zombie properties. Right. And so Oak gave us the profile to that. And do you want to give a quick encapsulation of what that is, Oak?
Yeah, so zombie properties are where they're in the foreclosure process, right? But they haven't started that process complete. They haven't completed that process, and the house is vacant. One of the cool things about DealMachine is that when we have filters like that, we will always tell you what we're actually pulling. There are some people out there for other groups that, they'll tell you we're pulling a tired landlord list, but you don't really know what that means. That just means that, they're pulling people that own multiple properties over a certain year, right? So let's see what zombie properties right here. So this is properties, like I said, properties that are vacant because of foreclosure, has started but hasn't been completed. So it's just in the state of limbo. So all these little question marks will tell you exactly what we're looking for and then what qualifies it to be that. So tired landlord, here's tired landlord. They don't live there. They've owned the property for 15 years. So there's no one saying, hey, I'm tired. I don't want to be a landlord anymore. There's no secret data point like that. But traditionally we see people that are in this criteria meet that quote unquote tired landlord world, if that makes sense.
So what you guys can do is you can use this as a foundation for building out your seller profiles. Right? So if you want to get into zombie properties or tired landlords, and let's just say tired landlords, and you've got that foundational information, and then you're sending out messages in Launch Control, you're activating those conversations, you're pushing to discovery call, and then from discovery call you're taking notes, right? And from those notes you start to build out a really solid profile of exactly who you're talking to, what their pain points are, and what gets them to make a decision in the most efficient way possible, right? So now you're building out a playbook for exactly how to close those kinds of properties, and you have that playbook saved. Right. So now when you do what we said at the beginning and your buyer gives you a set of parameters of what they're looking for, then you find those houses and you're able to, via DealMachine, you're able to figure out exactly which profiles those homes fit into. So now you know which of those fit into a tired landlord profile, and you've got that seller profile. You know exactly how to talk to them once you get them to start engaging, once you get them on the phone. You've got another subsection of those blue marked houses that Oak was talking about that fall into a high equity situation, and you've got a very detailed seller profile built out for them, and you know exactly how to talk to them. So whether you or VAs in your system are running it, you're matching a lot of just done for you puzzle pieces, where you take what we're rolling out at launch now, which is a system of interconnected quick replies that allow you to activate conversations to discovery call. And Jason and his team can walk you through that if you're not familiar with that yet. So then we can take that concept of these pre-built out maps of quick replies that drive to discovery, and we can match them to your seller profiles that you've put together based on these DealMachine filters. Now we know exactly how to tweak those preset quick replies so that we're pushing all of the right buttons for an out-of-state landlord, all of the right buttons for a bank sitting on a zombie property, all of the right buttons for somebody that's in a high equity situation in a way that we know is going to convert very, very quickly, right? So the more educated that we are about who is selling the house, what their motivations are, and combined with all of the really great property and area information that you're pulling from DealMachine, you've got an incredible wealth of information that you can use to then turn around and close those deals, right? And if we're talking about where we started and you already know exactly what your buyer wants on the other end, then there's zero guesswork here, right? All you're doing is fulfilling a promise and selling a property that they asked for, and you're just doing it in a way that emotionally appeals or factually appeals to the seller because you did your research. And Launch allows you to be able to take the filters that you're using from DealMachine, add filters from Launch, and really build out those profiles and activate those conversations.
I did see one question come through asking about the difference between us and LandGlide. What all the data boils down to is just the data, the accuracy of it, I just lost the word. The freshness of it. That's not the word I wanted, but that's the word I'm going to use. So really what I always tell people, you get a free trial with DealMachine. If you're a Launch Control member, you get a special offer. So talk to your Launch Control team on what that is. And you could just do a side-by-side and just pick who you like. You know, I'm not afraid of putting us up against the competition. I know our platform is really easy to use. It's great data. People love our data, and it's just getting better. So I would suggest kind of do them side by side. I don't know the ins and outs of the other guys to say, oh, you know, theirs looks like this and ours looks like this. I just know that it's going to boil down to your data. The one thing I do know that I have gotten feedback from is people coming over from PropStream in particular. It just takes them a little while to get used to where things are visually on a map or on the leads tab. But basically they're happy with all the information that we have. It's just more of that. It's kind of like when you put on the wrong sock on the wrong foot, I guess is a good way to say, you know, if your socks are so used to your feet or you put it on the wrong way, it's there, it works, just feels a little weird at first until you get it sorted out.
So can you guys speak to this a little bit? Because it's kind of what, you know, one of both of your areas of expertise. If people are coming in, they're Launch Control users, they're adopting DealMachine as a data source, and, you know, kind of drawing the line between which best practices questions and how to really maximize or optimize the systems, which of those go to you, Oak, and which of them go to you, Jason, in terms of how to really get the best out of the combined partnership?
Well, other than the offer that we have, so just to kind of give a glimpse of it, 30 days, definitely using our promo code free of charge. You can cancel at any time. But in terms of translating or kind of connecting DealMachine with Launch Control, I mean, it's extremely simple. When you look at it from a macro perspective, it only takes a few clicks away, especially if you're just using DealMachine to pull leads, right? So just apply filters, export the list, go to Launch Control, download our sample import file, put the leads there, and that's it. Now, segmentation is a completely different story. So if we're going to be kind of narrowing down the whole the marketing of different leads, so it's similar to filters that Oak used. So if we're going to be pulling leads from a certain market or a county, and we're going to be doing it in bulk, we want to narrow it down to a couple of niche lists, right? So if we're looking at 1 bathroom, 1 bedroom houses, we want to put them only in one list. If we're talking about zombie properties, we only want to put them in one list and name our campaigns that way, so we can again go back to making those data-driven decisions, keeping track of all the KPIs and stats. So the correlation is extremely easy. DealMachine is a user-friendly platform. Launch Control is user-friendly platform. And the whole process is just a few clicks away from getting data from DealMachine, putting it in Launch Control. And if I can give you a time frame of how long it would take, wouldn't take more than 10 minutes combined, and you're already on your way of texting those people, right? So just making sure that what you pull from DealMachine in terms of the filters that you use, you can translate those filters and put it in the name of your campaign, so you know exactly who you're messaging, what kind of approach you're using, what kind of responses you're getting, the quality of the conversations, how many deals you're closing on a monthly basis, and so on and so on.
Yeah, and when it comes to DealMachine, when you would want to contact us and get an idea of what's going on, it's really just, you know, simple. I say simple. It's really just trying to understand how to pull the data, how to manipulate the data, how to clean it up. Our client success manager, Ryan, he has office hours 4 days a week where you can just hop in there and get one-on-one or small group sessions of how to actually utilize DealMachine, how to connect. Our Facebook group is always active with people talking about what types of properties to look for or special tips and tricks. And then lastly, our chat support. If you have, hey, say you are sending mail with DealMachine and something's happening, they can hop in, they can remote into your account with your permission, look at your postcards, look at your sends, make sure it's all set up properly. Because it's funny, even just the smallest thing, like instead of saying hi first name, if you put hi Oak on your postcard, it's going to cause a trigger, right? So we're going to be there to help you get set up, help you understand how to pull the information, but it is pretty self-explanatory when it comes to just kind of bopping around, adding properties and so on and so forth. But yeah, we're the data guys. We'll get you all the data that we can, and then you can export it, mail it, skip it, call it, text it, do whatever you need to do.
And pretty much the same thing that Go said, sorry, Michael, just correlates with Launch Control in terms of our support and success team. So if you have any questions, whether they're technical, you want to talk about best practices, the new rollouts of the approaches and everything, you can email us at support or success at Launch Control. You can email me at Jason at Launch Control as well. Any questions you have, we're going to provide answers within minutes.
Yeah, so I wanted to connect this a little bit to content. I saw we had a question about content. Is it what we've done recently for carrier compliance regulations is kind of reset the general approaches for content. This would be content that is hitting multiple pain points, kind of the equivalent of, if we use Phoenix, like let's have something that could potentially appeal to anyone in the Phoenix market, and then start to activate those conversations from there. And the way that system is going to work is it's not just one initial message. We're going to have an initial message plus 2 retargeting sequences. And it's that combination of 3 that we want to drive responses into the inbox and have that be the real response rate. Is how did that 3-step activation actually get people into the inbox? Once they're into the inbox, we have decision trees built out from the quick replies, which Jason and his team are going to educate everyone on in the coming days. And it's 2 simple paths. One is, if it's a positive response, we take them down a quick activation path and try to get them on a discovery call in 5 minutes or less. If it's somebody who shows a bit of vagueness, or they're really not sure about how or why you're contacting them, we're going to take them down a nurture path, which also leads to discovery. Now, speaking of foundations, what's really exciting about that is it plays into what we were saying about the DealMachine data. Is you could text all of Phoenix, but where you're really going to get results is by narrowing it down, all the way to your sweet spot, right? So if you guys start really activating this DealMachine partnership and really digging into those really hyper targeted segmentation, sharing that with CS, then what we can do is create content flows from initial all the way through to discovery that match those seller profiles, right? So this is how, like, the 3 of us and 3 groups end up in a really great partnership. Is you start really digging in on DealMachine and getting super creative with getting down to those very specific types of properties that an AC unit and a wheelchair ramp specific that are really great for you, right? And those are deal flow for you. And then you're helping us to, per your discovery calls, build out really specific seller profiles. From those seller profiles, we create activation flows in content that are specifically geared towards converting those deals. And we can do it. We can help you guys by working with the CS team. We can do this in a one-off situation where we're helping you on a hyper-specific flow, but we can also figure out by working together, like what gets like out-of-state landlords, for instance, to activate in 3 responses or less, right? That's what we want, right? So by working in concert of, again, like really getting really creative and specific with DealMachine, working with Jason and his team to set up the right filtering and tracking, and then yourselves and your team creating those seller profiles so you always know exactly who you're talking to and what helps them make decisions, so you're able to turn those over quicker, then we can create these conversion systems within the real estate investment space that do not exist, right? And it's something that could be incredibly powerful by just the three groups: the investors, Launch Control, and the data provider DealMachine, and working together for the same end goal, right? So I'm very excited about this partnership. I'm very excited about the new content and what we're going to be able to do to adjust it to these specific flows. And I think where we come out of this as a kind of triumvirate here is going to be, it's going to make a lot of money for all of us.
Yeah, it's going to be real exciting to see how this all plays hand in hand. There was one other question I wanted to make sure I touched on that I saw, asking how do you do this when you're driving? So after you sign up for DealMachine, I would suggest signing up on a computer. It's just easier. Maybe I'm just of that age where I like a computer better than phone. But once you sign up for DealMachine, you can just download our app on whatever app store that you use, and you can put it on any kind of mobile device. You can put it on a tablet, you can put it on a cell phone. And then as you're driving around, instead of my mouse, you'll just see an icon where, as long as your location services are on, it's just going to follow you around. And then it'll be like that virtual driving, but in physical, right? So you'll be cruising down the street. Oh, that update worked. So we were talking about that, and it didn't work the other day. That's interesting. So I'll remember not to do thumbs up. So once you drive around, you can add them as you go. You can tap on them, and then you can just kind of do it like we did virtually real quickly, but as a physical drive.
Okay, great. So, Jason, I think is that going to put us into like an Atari mode again? There you go.
I don't know.
All right. So, guys, the last chance here. If you have any questions for Oak, DealMachine related, or for Jason on how to get this set up, go ahead and pop those into the Q&A. We'll do a quick recap here as well while you guys are adding any last questions that you have. So for Launch Control users who want to get going with DealMachine, reach out to your CS rep. They'll walk you through it. It's super simple to set up. It'll take minutes, and you guys will have access over to DealMachine. If you have questions that are really, really specific as to how to optimize certain filtering sets, that kind of thing, you'll have access to Oak and his team to really kind of get into the nitty-gritty of DealMachine. And then, as I said, the goal here is to take really great data practices, match them up with what Jason and his team will help you set up for tracking that data. And then we will follow up with more specific content that would be aimed at activating per your sweet spot to help you get a consistent deals coming through this system. Okay. So yeah, let me just check, see if we have any last questions. No, I think we've answered those. We will send out a recap of this, or a replay of this. Everybody will have access to that. If you think of any questions in the meantime, you'll be able to respond at that point, and we'll answer anything else you have. But in the meantime, yeah, please go out, get DealMachine, work with Jason and his team, and let's get some deals.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Bye.